Hey everybody, it's JJ here, and welcome back to Geeky Dad's Reads. So tonight, I'm going to be talking about my top 5 darkest Star Wars novels in the expanded universe. So this would be the expanded universe, you know, the ones that Disney completely wiped off the map, or legends as the heathens like to say. So top 5 darkest Star Wars expanded universe novels. Now, darkest does not necessarily mean that they are Sith novels. Yes, there are Sith novels in my books, in my list here, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're all Sith novels. Some of them aren't. And so, but these are the ones that I think have a little bit of darker content that I'm just like, ooh, man, we went there. We actually went there. So anyway, here they are. I think you're going to enjoy these. And if you haven't checked any of them out, go check them out. And if you have, let me know if you think that this is a pretty dark story in the Star Wars expanded universe. Of course, the first one coming up for me is by Joe Schreiber. I never know if I say his name right. And that, of course, is not Death Troopers, as some of you might expect, or even Red Harvest, but is actually Maul Lockdown. Maul Lockdown, I think, is one of the most brutal Star Wars stories out there. Maul is sent into a maximum security prison. He is ordered by Sidious. You cannot use force power. So he is using brute strength. He is fighting. There's actually fights that happen that are bet on by people within the galaxy. And so he is just fighting like crazy in this story. This is brutal, just some of the things that happens. It's very dark in its tone, but it is a very, very, very good story. And I think it sets up a lot for going into the Phantom Menace and kind of what we're beginning to see there. So Maul Lockdown coming in, one of the first ones for me. All right, coming in at number 2 for me, it is not a Sith novel. It is a part of New Jedi Order, and that is Traitor. What happens to Jason Solo in this book by the... I never can say the alien race flag, but Yuzon Vong, I think is how we say it. I've always had problems with pronunciation of weird names, and I've heard so many YouTubers and people say that. I, for some reason, just can't pronounce it, so please forgive me for that. But what happens in this book, the torture scenes and things like that, it is absolutely just heartbreaking, and it is very, very, very dark. This book right here, it was uncomfortable at times for me to read. That's how I felt about it. It is probably one of my favorites in the New Jedi Order for some strange reason. I felt like it was starting to get back to its roots. It's, of course, it is Matthew Stover, so he's an awesome Star Wars writer. But this one right here really, really bugged me, and I felt like it was very dark, but it is one of my favorites. I'm not sure really what that says about me. So there you go, Traitor. All right, coming in at number, 3, of course, is a Sith novel, and that is Darth Bane, Path of Destruction. This book right here, I really felt like sets up the early days of the Sith and kind of gives you some of the darkness of what it means to be obsessed with power. And I think the Darth Bane trilogy, all of them on their own, are all excellent books, especially the Rule of Two, and they set you on a path that is really much like, this is how the Sith come to power. But I really felt like this one right here was very dark and very good at the same time. So for me, this one right here, I think is not, I wouldn't say it's the darkest Sith novel. I think my next one is actually the darkest Sith novel, but this is definitely one of those that it can make you uncomfortable if you struggle with dealing with the evil side of the Star Wars, the universe in any way. So there here, Path of Destruction, Darth Bane. This is the book 1 in that trilogy. Coming in at number 2, of course, is a Sith novel again, and that, of course, is Darth Plagueis. This right here is more about Sidious's rise to power, I feel like. But it is very dark, especially what Sidious does to him. I felt like this one right here, first of all, it's just beautifully written. It's James Luceno. But mainly, I felt like what we got in this book was something I wasn't expecting. I'm going to do a video later on about books that I felt like should be tentpoles that Disney should have kept canon. You can wipe there's 157 of them. They weren't all good and they weren't all great, but there was at least 10 or 12 of them that I think should have, put the tent poles down, and Disney should have just said, okay, these books are canon, the rest, they're legends. But this one right here definitely was one of them. I think this really sets up a lot of what Sidious is going through his mind. You see how evil Sidious really is, and how his rise to becoming, Emperor Palpatine, how incredible it is, and how sneaky and sly and just flat out evil. This book right here, I felt like showed a dark side of the Sith in a very, very good way, and what they wouldn't do to obtain power. So there you go. Number 2, the number 2 darkest Star Wars novel in the expanded universe for me, Darth Plagueis. All right, coming in, the darkest Star Wars novel in the expanded universe, of course, by Matthew Stover, and that is Shatterpoint. This book right here, I felt like showed the dark side of war. This is one of I think it's in my top 20. Is where I had it ranked. I can't remember exactly where I had it on my list, but this book was heartbreaking. I felt like this shows the dark side of a darker side of the Clone Wars, sort of a darker tone. We sort of skim over the Clone Wars in that second movie. We get a little bit of it, and then we get a little bit of it in, of course, the animation show. But this one right here, I felt like really nailed it on the head as far as how dark and how incredibly heartbreaking war really is. This story right here really nailed a lot of different things. And so this one right here was, for me, it is the darkest Star Wars novels. And I've actually seen a lot of people say the same thing, that this was the one that just kind of, disturbed them the most, or felt like it was really dark just because of everything that's going on inside of it. All right, there you go. Those are my top 5 darkest Star Wars expanded universe novels. There's so many out there. Of course, there's Labyrinth of Evil. There's Rise of the Dark Lord. There's Revenge of the Sith is sort of a dark novel as well. And there's so many others. Maybe I missed some, and maybe you're thinking, JJ, you got it wrong. Death Troopers should have been on here. Red Harvest should have been on here. Some of those others. Let me know down in the comments whether you disagree with my list. I'd love to hear what you think are some of the darkest Star Wars novels out there. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Later.